Oi, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? Aye, you'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a rope? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Assassin's Creed 2. Like I said, you will find out in this your podcast. Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, where we attempt to find the best game within a very specific category. For example, this week we're looking for the best game that's a spin-off of another game that's in a completely different genre. The poster boy for this is, of course, the Mario franchise, which started off as a single-screen platformer, then became a side-scrolling platformer, and is now dovetailed into an enormous gaming franchise that includes everything from kart racing to tennis to RPGs. Speaking of ancient gaming personalities who happen to have a similar-looking but much more athletic brother, we are rejoined this week by Tom Ori. How you doing?
Much more athletic. Have you seen him recently? You stole my joke about being a spin-off.
Yeah.
Because you could say I was a spin-off, I suppose.
Are you a spin-off?
Well, I don't know. You could say, a twin spin-offs.
Who came first?
Who spun off who? I don't know how it works exactly.
Who was born earlier?
Him.
Yeah, well, you're the spin-off then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or the sequel. I don't know how these things work either. But yeah, so I don't know how I'm going to put this into a succinct headline, but we're looking for the best game that's spun off from a game that's in a totally different genre. This has happened quite a lot. I mean, some in the sort of 32-bit era, a lot of like games that were sort of 2D platformers became 3D action adventures, which is interesting. Mario did that as well. Has Mario just done everything? Is Mario like The Simpsons? But yeah, so what are we looking for? I think everyone, Tom, is desperate to hear from you first.
Are you introducing the others or not? Do they not get an intro?
I keep telling everyone fucking knows who they are at this point.
Just random people.
I was like extremely rude anyway, because like as Jim was doing a beautiful intro, no one on the audio version would know any different, but I was literally still sending emails, so I was just looking at a different screen, typing. If you rewind, you can probably see me realise, oh shit, it started, and look at the camera and smile.
Alex, keep that in. That is the voice of Alex Donaldson, of course, associate editor Alex Donaldson, and we're also joined by James Bilcliffe, who actually, James, you're on to sort of, because you've got a bit of a, I think it's a bit one-sided, Donaldson, to be honest, a bit of a rivalry with Alex.
He's the only threat to my superiority, you see. So I just have to.
I think, I'm definitely the Leeds United, his Manchester United, aren't I? It's like I'm well up for it, but they're a bit man plus, aren't they? Anyway,
I'm going to pretend to understand that joke. Okay, right. As I say, I think everyone's desperate to hear from Tom because we've been putting podcasts up where you're not in them, Tom. But I've been putting you on the thumbnail.
I've moaned about that quite a lot. I've moaned to you about that.
Yeah,
people are getting very upset. And I'm reading the comments of people getting upset thinking there's 3 or 4 left. There's 3 or 4 left that he's not on yet, and they're this angry already.
Yeah, that's true, actually. At the time of recording, there's a bunch that haven't gone out yet that Tom is nowhere near. I'm really enjoying how, there's Kerry, your Welsh fan, your one Welsh fan, Tom, who... is just getting more and more exasperated with us every week about you being on the thumbnail. This is, I think at one point you threatened to go to trading standards. So like, I need to bring some of the comments up. I think on the last one, why is Tom on the thumbnail? Audience was robbed of Tom again, etc. So it turns out you're quite popular on this show, Tom. It's baffling. As someone who's known you for a long time, it's really baffling to me.
I'm quite boring as well. So, example of how boring I am. Right, it's my birthday. It was my birthday recently.
Yeah.
Only one of you on this call gave me anything. Work out who that is. My son was talking to my wife about like what they could get me for my birthday, right? And like he's known me for 10 years, my son. Like I think he knows who I am. He knows what I like. He's basically a model younger version of me. And he was like, my wife was like, what can we get your dad? And he was thinking for a while, and he said, a charger.
Practical.
Like a phone charger.
You probably
Just
do
a
need
charger.
a charger.
I mean,
you probably do need
I
one, to be
would.
fair.
I do. I mean, I'm always looking for one. So yeah, but I don't know what one he was going to get me. He didn't get me a charger in the end.
Maybe Christmas. Christmas is coming.
Yeah, I mean, not act surprised.
That is a very he's done well there, because that is a very Ori moment, isn't it? I was going to get him a charger, but then I didn't. Happy birthday. But what have you picked for this exasperatingly difficult to summarize topic?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm glad I didn't go with the Mario game now, because you've done all that intro about Mario games, and if you've picked a Mario game, change it quickly is my advice, because you're gonna look a bit simple, aren't you, if you do that.
Alex is looking a bit sheepish here.
I mean, he's probably gone for the spin-off that only released on a device that released in Japan. So maybe he's covered.
Is there a Mario spin-off on the Neo Geo or something?
I can think of what he's picked already, but I won't spoil it. We'll see. I'll reveal truthfully if I did think that. But anyway, before I reveal my game, I just thought I'd tell a little story about what happened while I was off. Not off work, just off the podcast.
But before you do that, can you get your camera to refocus on you, because it's gone all blurry for some reason?
Has it?
Either that or it's really steamy in there.
It looks fine on my side.
There we go. It's better now. Okay, carry on.
Right.
Sorry.
So yeah, before I tell you the game I've picked, I've got a little story about what happened when I was off the podcast, not off work. But so I can't remember why. I was going to my mum's. I was in the car with my mum. I think we were going over there for dinner, or I can't remember if it was my son's birthday, or there was something we were going over there for. And just casually talking about things, as you do, like, how are you, what you've been up to, and I'm like, not much, etc. And then she was like, oh, I've been talking to your aunt on Facebook. And I was like, all right, which one? And she said a name that I'd never heard of before. And I was like, what, who's that? Who's this person? And she's like, oh, your aunt, your dad's sister. I was like, what? You've never told me about this person before in my life, right? And she said, oh yeah, she left. She was like not talked too much in the family. She left to be a ballerina. And I was like, all right, never heard of this before. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to meet up with your aunt next time we're in Folkestone, because they live near there. I was like, okay, fine. Interesting to me that I've got this new aunt. She said, yeah, she's got a sister. I was like, what? I've never heard of her either. And an uncle, not an uncle, a brother, but he died. Yeah. So in this random car journey, I discover I've got two aunts that I've never heard of, and an uncle who died. No one told me any of this. So that was interesting. And then we got on to talking about, like, I don't know what mint she was using in the fajitas, just casually. And then we discovered she didn't have the right mints, because I don't eat meat at home. So on the way to my mum's, we stopped off at a supermarket. I walked into the supermarket, and right at the start, there's a load of pastries, right? In the entrance to this supermarket. I walked in, and I was just casually looking at them. And then out the corner of my eye, I saw this child sort of sat on a potty. I was like, what's going on there? And the mum was like, do a poo. And I was like, what is going on at this supermarket? Anyway, that's a story for another time, probably. My choice is Typing of the Dead.
That's really good. Typing of the Dead.
I can't believe I get told off for going off on tangents about unrelated games to my pick. Can't believe it.
That's a good choice, though, isn't it? Typing of the Dead. It's
I'm going to tell you something now, Tom. I thought about picking Typing of the Dead.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, is this really a spin-off?
It is. It's
Because
a spin-off. Because
really,
I'll tell
it's
you
just
why.
sort of a ROM hack for the actual game where they change a couple of things. But so, is it a spin-off when all they really do is change the input device?
Yeah, it is because
If you choose to play,
typing
Super
game.
Mario World on an arcade stick rather than, or if you play Rock Band with a controller rather than with the guitar, is it a spin-off?
Different. Completely different. Those are still rhythm games. You're just using a different input.
And this is still a shooting game. You just fire the bullets with.
You're
with
not shooting.
keyboard.
You're typing words. Words appear on the screen. You type them out. That is very different to pointing a gun at a screen and shooting. Had a peripheral. You had to plug in a keyboard. I had the official Dreamcast keyboard because why not?
Bags.
Why not? I had all the peripherals back then for things. I had the Samba de Amigo maracas. You can imagine me playing that.
Did you have the bongos, the Donkey Konga bongos?
No, I wasn't into
I did have those.
GameCube, so no, I wasn't going to get that. But I had the Steel Battalion controller for Xbox.
Of course you did.
For
That's a
bloody
top
money
thing
bags,
to
for real.
own.
I hated that too. Never really played it much.
They're worth a few quid now.
They weren't when I sold it. But yeah, Typing of the Dead is a spin-off. It's probably it's one of the smartest spin-offs because they were like, how can we get more out of this without doing much work, right?
Yeah,
And they were like,
isn't that basically what Alex just said?
no, it's a spin-off. It has to be counted as a spin-off because it's a completely different way of playing the game, right? It's probably a bigger departure from going platformer to RPG, right? This is like completely different. It's not even people that don't play games can play this, right? Massive spin-off, unexpected. Like, why would you go light gun shooter to typing tutor? And yeah, but it was surprisingly, what's the word? Stressful. Because like normal typing, like they had these kind of things are quite a big deal. Not a big deal, but they were quite common back when games were terrible and everything. Like typing games, you had to type words out quickly, give you a score, etc. But suddenly, because there's zombies involved and monsters and everything else, typing out the words incorrectly had an extra level of stress and fear attached to it. And yeah, like it was surprisingly good, just because of like it was built onto this existing good game. They spun it off in an interesting and exciting way.
I enjoyed that there was a boss that literally made you type out the EULA to the game.
God, really?
Which was, I think it's the boss that's running towards you, so I think maybe the third level's boss. And of course they did do Typing of the Dead Overkill, which was House of the Dead Overkill. And that game sort of shows what I'm talking about, where literally they released that on PC as Typing of the Dead Overkill, but then in the menu there's an option you flick and it turns back into a light gun game if you happen to have a light gun for your PC or if you want to play it with a mouse. Yeah. So
just I do think Donaldson's got you here, Tom, because it is Typing of the Dead. In terms of content, identical to House of the Dead.
Let's move on. Right, I'm Mario Kart. There you go, I've won. Mario Kart, I've won. Let's stop it now. Let's be boring. I've won with Mario Kart. There's no point continuing.
No. I'm just saying. Like, how do we?
Changed
how,
it. Let's
how
not
do we?
discuss
No.
Mario Kart is a good game.
Typing of the Dead.
Also, it's been going for years, right?
The
latest
Mario
Kart is probably the best one.
With a long-standing precedent on this show that you can't pick anything I've said in the intro.
I'm doing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe plus the expansion.
You can't. At best, you can do like Crash Bandicoot Kart.
That as well.
The fuck that was
That's
called.
also very good.
Yeah, that was another one that was on my list.
Also very good.
Yeah,
and I think that the recent remake redo was unfairly criticised because I think
by Connor,
even like all the stuff about actually grinding for getting all the unlocks and stuff.
Yeah.
Kids like that stuff.
Yeah.
It was very popular in my house because of all the unlocks and how you had to work to get them. So
it's because these things are reviewed by people our age who don't have any fucking free time.
Connor's not our age. Let's not insult him. Let's not insult him like that.
No, he's just got the energy of a 40-year-old man. All right, okay. All right, Tom, I'm gonna accept that Typing of the Dead is a spin-off just for you because it is a very interesting pick. I agree. That's a very good challenge, Alex. But you got to admit it's a good choice.
I'm waiting for his Mario game. Here we go.
I mean, it's inspired by the fact that Alex just reviewed Super Mario RPG, so I was half expecting you to just pick that.
Well, I wouldn't even say that's the best Mario spin-off, I guess, of a different genre.
You're more of a superstar soccer guy.
Oh yeah, like there was that. I think it was Did You Know Gaming? They did a recent thing about Retro Studios, sort of speaking to a lot of ex-retro guys about all their games. Really good video on YouTube, well worth looking at. But it's long though; it's like 40 minutes long, and it sort of runs through the history of retro and all about the games that they were working on before Metroid Prime that got cancelled. And obviously Nintendo's quite strange in that Nintendo will let developers experiment for years and just throw stuff in the bin, which is why, you know, Retro last put out Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, so that's got to be knocking on closer to 10 years ago now than it is 5 years ago. And they just haven't done anything since, and it sounds like they've had a lot of stuff rejected, and then Metroid Prime 4 was being made in Japan, and then the Japanese version got cancelled, so then they all got drafted onto Metroid Prime 4, and it goes through all these games throughout the years, going back to the GameCube era that have been cancelled on the way or didn't get the okay from Nintendo. So like really interesting pitches about like they wanted to do a Zelda action adventure spin-off where you played as Sheik and it was more like a God of War sort of style game, and all these things that Nintendo said no to. But one of them, where when I saw it my heart broke, was that they wanted to do a Mario American football game.
Oh wow, that would be like such in your wheelhouse.
What's really sad? This video, just to summarize it, I highly recommend you go and watch it. But like, so they wanted to do a Mario game. Nintendo of America said no, but this was the era when EA was refusing to put their sports games on GameCube. So they said, we really like this, but we need an actual sports game. So they made them go out and get all the licensing for all the teams and stuff of the NFL, and they made an NFL game. And literally, they were finished. They were at the debugging stage, and EA changed their mind and put Madden on GameCube, and Nintendo cancelled the game, even though it was finished.
Wow.
And so they've got people in this video talking about how it was done, it was ready to go, it was 2 months from release, and because Madden came to GameCube in the end, Nintendo was just like, which is crazy.
Wow.
Nuts to think about.
That's insane. I mean, if I was Nintendo, I would have just put it out to spite them. Like,
whereas the sad thing is, if they'd actually made that Mario American football game, that would have come out and it probably would have been amazing. But there you go. Yeah. Anyway. So am I doing my pick now?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
After that tangent, I guess time for another tangent, right? I think this is a really interesting topic, and there's so many things you could go for. Like, we mentioned Crash Team Racing. I thought about that. In a similar vein, I thought about Diddy Kong Racing. And I thought about, not as a Diddy Kong spin-off, but I thought about how Conker first appeared in Diddy Kong Racing. And Banjo first appeared in Diddy Kong Racing. So those two games are sort of, in a way, spin-offs of Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah.
You know, I did think about Typing of the Dead, I have to admit, but I dismissed it for the exact reason that I dismissed Tom. I thought about Mario Brothers and how that is essentially a spin-off of Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
And obviously, me being me, you know, Final Fantasy is a series with countless spin-offs, and I actually do think one of the best series spin-offs of all time is absolutely Final Fantasy Tactics. And that was very close to being my choice because, you know, that is a game that casts a very long shadow. It's simultaneously quite brave in the sense that story-wise and visuals and presentation, it's quite different to the other Final Fantasy games. But that bravery then casts a long shadow where that's so influential over 12, over 16. A lot of the people who worked on Tactics were on 16 or deeply inspired by it. But in the end, I had to go for a spin-off that basically created a whole new genre. A spin-off that is a cultural phenomenon, a spin-off that is one of the greatest selling games of all time, one of the greatest selling game franchises of all time. and that is The Sims, which of course
Oh shit! Yeah,
is a spin-off of SimCity.
Yeah.
Maxis was in this era where they made SimCity, and then they were doing lots of weird stuff around that, Simcopter and Sim this, Sim
Sim
that.
Ant.
Sim Ant. I remember, well, Simcopter's the one that sticks out in my mind, because I remember whichever version of Simcopter it was, but like you could fly around your city from SimCity 2000 or 3000, whichever one it was. So you could see your city from a different perspective, and like, so you'd be like, oh yeah, I put that police station there, or whatever. But The Sims is obviously, they had a city building thing, and their concept was, I guess, what if we zoomed into a tiny little city block of that city, and instead of simulating the city, it was a life simulation, and it was about the people. And I just find it a fascinating sort of development of all the SimCity stuff that had come before that. I remember at the time, they absolutely did in interviews and stuff talk about having similar hooks from SimCity to The Sims. So you could connect your you could connect you could connect the two, so your Sims are actually living in your city or something, but that never came to pass. But nevertheless,
I
it just
remember
became
that being
hugely popular.
Yeah.
And it's just probably the most important spin-off of all time. I mean, it's and this is where it differs from something like Final Fantasy Tactics or Typing of the Dead, where they did do Typing of the Dead Overkill, but that only existed because House of the Dead Overkill existed. The Sims has now overtaken. They're making a new Sims game. They're not making a new SimCity game. The Sims has become,
it's now become the flagship, isn't it? Yeah.
And Final Fantasy Tactics will never supplant Final Fantasy, but it's they'll continue to make tactical spin-offs, but I don't think Final Fantasy 17 will ever have a tactical sort of setup. So I think that's sort of what sets it apart. SimCity was a classic. They chose to iterate. I think the genres are close in the sense that city building, construction management sim, life sim. You can make the argument that they're both simulation games because they are. But what I'd say is the topic title obviously is totally different genre, and I would say life sims and construction sims are totally different genres. You wouldn't confuse them for being remotely similar. And that's the other thing that I really like. One does flow from the other. It's a zoomed in version that is nevertheless completely different. And like I say, it kicked off a whole genre. There's been many pretenders over the years. I think this coming quite soon. We've got the first rival that might actually stand a chance. Where at Gamescom I saw Life by You, which is Paradox's take on this, and that's really interesting in itself because it's like Paradox obviously became the heirs to the city construction crown with City Skylines, and now they're doing their version of The Sims. So it'd be
Maxis
and obviously
must hate them.
And at the same time, like Maxis EA are making Sims 5, 6, 5. Oh,
5. I think it's 5.
Yeah, it's hard to think that Sims 4 has gone on for as long as it has, because that's got to be like pushing 15 years now. But fair play to them.
I'm pretty sure I reviewed that.
Let's
Feels so old now.
Bit of a boring choice, this, isn't it? Sims. It's a bit like saying a garage is a spin-off of a house. It's like,
well, the garage isn't completely functionally different to the rest of the house, though, is it? Like the Sims is a completely different beast.
You can both like be inside. They're both buildings. These are both very kind of like simulations of things.
Different because the garage is where you keep your car, and the house is where you keep your wings.
I don't keep my car in a garage.
But the difference is, Tom, is construction is a piece of the Sims. But it's very different because in SimCity you're never constructing the micro elements of the building. SimCity's macro. You're doing the whole city. You're plopping a single building. Often you don't even have control of what sort of building is going to pop up because you're just zoning and you get what you get and it looks good or it looks crap and you demolish it and let the AI have another go. SimCity obviously the Sims obviously have the micro control of putting a wall there, putting a fireplace there, putting the doorway here, fridge goes here, da 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 da. And also in The Sims, the construction is, depending on how you play it. Some people are focused on the construction, but The Sims is a small part of this greater whole where it is more about you build your house and then maybe you extend it and do some bits to it here and there, but it's really about the life, because it's a life sim. It's about meeting neighbors, getting to know people, making friends, getting married, having children, putting wooden furniture in front of fireplaces to cause fires and kill people, deleting ladders out of pools so they drown, etc., etc.
I think there's a real kind of voyeuristic aspect to it as well, because I think it's interesting that the original version of The Sims launches in the same year as Big Brother. And I think there's a lot of kind of crossover appeal with those things. I remember my sister-in-law at the time, who was at the time, I think, in her kind of mid-teens, every new series of Big Brother, she would build a new Sims house and put all the people in it, and then kill them off as they got evicted. I think that was the thing.
That definitely must have been how many people basically did that with their friends. Create a Sims Big Brother house where it's them and it's versions of them and all their mates and
the question that I would ask about
it's a genius game.
The question I asked about that though is that how many, as a percentage, how many people played then went on to play with that Sims house for more than about 45 minutes? I'm very happy to be wrong about this, but I've always, The Sims as a series is something I've never really got, because I understand making your Sims and putting them in the house and all of that sort of stuff, but I've always found it to be a little bit sort of sparse and mechanically barren, that you just sort of get into a bit of a drudge of, okay, I go to work, I get up, and then I get back, I've not got time to make tea, and then I go to sleep, and then I'm too tired.
But I think it speaks to how invested people get in the little characters, because I think because I'm like you, like The Sims, I can appreciate it on a game design and mechanical level and the depth of the simulation and everything, but I won't play it for more than a few days before I've gone, right, I think I've had my fill of that. But everyone I know who's into The Sims, I mean, funnily enough, they're all women. I don't know if that means anything, but they are obsessed with the miniature lives and the actual goings on in the house and stuff, and also the interior design and stuff.
I mean, just to put it into perspective, the 24-hour peak on Steam for The Sims 4 right now, and keep in mind, The Sims 4 wasn't on Steam for a long time, so a lot of people will only own it through Origin, which is Origin. It does still exist, doesn't it? Like Christ, but
I think it's just changed to EA something.
Yeah,
but the 24-hour peak for The Sims is thousands of players higher than the 24-hour peak just over the last 24 hours at time of recording for Cyberpunk, for Rainbow Six Siege, for Payday 2, for Red Dead 2. It's about the same as Football Manager. It's about the same as Civilization 6. This is a game that is nearly 10 years old, and people are still invested and still, which is why they've been able to have, it's going to be 10 years old, and The Sims 5 is announced, but it's they've announced it in the most nebulous sort of way, where it's they've done that BioWare thing of going, we're working on this. That means there won't be any more expansions for The Sims 4, but we have no idea when we're actually going to be releasing this. It might not be out for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And, the gaps are getting longer, as they are in most game series. But so it's the gap between The Sims and The Sims 2 was pushing 5 years, which was long in the 2000s. This was when even Final Fantasy games were coming out every 2 years. And the gap between The Sims 2 and The Sims 3 was 6 years. And then the gap between The Sims 3 and 4 was 7-8 years. And now it's going to be well over a decade. And the reason they can do that is because people do become invested and people do play this game. And don't get me wrong, there are people, obviously. I'm one of those people where I probably, anytime there's a new Sims or anytime there's a Sims expansion pack that interests me, I get it, I play it, I maybe play 15, 20 hours, and then I go, that's enough of that, and I bounce off. I'm more of a SimCity person. Like City Skylines is where my time goes now. But the suggestion that this isn't, it is, like I say, one of the biggest game franchises of all time.
It's just boring, isn't it? A boring choice. Can you build supermarkets in The Sims?
I think in not in The Sims 1, but certainly in versions of The Sims 4, you can set up businesses and stuff like that, and have control of businesses and that sort of crap.
Just a random question.
Right, okay.
You know.
You're making some notes for later. Okay, right. So we've got Typing of the Dead, or Crash Team Racing, depending on how Tom feels later. We've got The Sims.
No, it was actually Mario Kart 8
as a franchise. James, what have you picked?
So
what's your big moment?
I've plumbed the archives again for another one of my favorite games, which upon reflection is never a good idea, but I've gone for it regardless. I've gone for a game that I think is extremely underrated, and if it was to come out today would be viewed in a much more positive light. And I think we're all fans here of Marvel's Midnight Suns. Like, we all thought that was a really good game, really overlooked, and that cadence of card battling and all that stuff. We all really enjoyed that with the storyline. Yeah. And the game that I've picked is, like I say, very underrated, and I think the best, a spin-off in a classic series that holds up best in even compared to the main series games, and that is Metal Gear Acid, the PSP card battling collectible card game RPG.
I knew it.
Tactical.
Underrated.
It's extremely good.
Not.
This is one of my favorite games, and I would.
It's not underrated.
It really, really is. It really, really is. It's
no, it is not.
So
if I do a Google search, best PSP game, best PSP game, it's going to be right at the top, isn't it?
It's not going to be.
I bet it is.
I thought a lot of like Metal Gear fans fucking hated Metal Gear Acid because it was
because they're dumb.
Left field.
It's it's generally it's really good. I'm literally holding the little dude from Death Stranding. If you don't think that I'm a Metal Gear fan, but anyway, all right. The Metal Gear Acid. It's like, if you don't know, it's a when is it set? I think it's between, just off the top of my head, I've not checked this. I think it's between 1 and 4. It's sort of it's the modern-ish day. It's one of those ones where came out in the early 2000s, and it's like, in a world of 2016.
Is it canon?
I'm pretty sure it is. I think it is.
This is where Kojima goes wrong, though. Like,
it's not Kojima.
There's no need for your card battling spin-off to be canon. Well, it is Kojima, because he still had. It's like Revengeance isn't Kojima, but it is. Like, he was still controlling the series at the time. Your fucking card battler doesn't need to be canon and contain story revelations about the rest of the series. It's just silly.
Well, so what happens is that you have a similar cadence of the stealth mission, the infiltration, the tactical espionage action, and all of that sort of stuff. But instead of camouflages and items that you find in Metal Gear Solid 3 and all of that sort of stuff, you are crouching underneath trucks and you're finding card packs, like Pokemon card packs. And that sort of stuff is just it's pure drugs. It's hardcore drugs to me. I love that stuff.
Hold on, James. Hold a minute. I've not played this because Metal Gear is just awful, right? But just explain to me again what happens. So are you in a real 3D environment?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you walking around a 3D world?
Kind of.
While you're walking around, you go, oh, look, it's a pack of cards underneath a truck.
Yeah, you go, Major, there's some cards under that truck, or whatever in it.
Okay.
So
Is it apart from the distribution of cards? Is it functionally like the same as every other Metal Gear game?
no, it isn't. So all of the
Okay, fine.
So as well as a collectible card game, it's a tactical turn-based RPG too. So rather than where in
right.
a Metal Gear game you're using the left stick to run about and that sort of stuff, in Metal Gear Acid you are so the deck of cards that you have two functions. You can either play them for so there'll be weapons, there'll be the SOCOM, or there'll be characters with like special attacks. So Vulcan Raven will have some kind of like area of effect attack, or they're split into characters and weapons and grenades and all that sort of stuff. But you can spend all of these cards for a movement cost at the same time, so you can move a particular number of squares on an isometric grid. Is that right? Isometric. It's probably just a grid. It's not isometric. It's just a grid. So it's tactical in that sense, and turn-based in that sense too. So rather than moving around in a 3D real-time way, you're spending these cards and you're moving around a grid in a kind of Mario Party-esque way, if you want to sort of conceptualize it that way. And you're moving through the environments and you're taking out the cards. It's a bit more action focused than stealth, because you can go through it stealthily like you would in any other Metal Gear game. But because you've got all of these, there's a bigger emphasis on weapons and stuff. Yeah, it's much more about a card battler essentially, in a similar way to Midnight Suns or something. And it's just really good because I think that it's a spin-off that really distills the essence and gives you a similar experience and experience to the original games, but in a completely different way. That's a fresh and different take on it. And I think because of the interaction and the mechanics of it, I think it holds up extremely well. Obviously, I would never encourage anybody to, if they were to own a Steam Deck, investigate ways that they could maybe play it in this day and age. But I recently reviewed the Master Collection of Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3, and you go back to those games now, and it's quite interesting to think of them from the perspective of how they were so reactive and innovative and interesting. And the whole point of these games is that they get the legendary for this weird and esoteric story and all of that sort of stuff. But in their time, they were very reactive and innovative, and they had all of these interesting mechanics that you could shake Snake around in the medical screen, and then he'd throw up on the floor afterwards when you backed out and all of that sort of stuff. And going through the Master Collection, it was interesting to see them as old relics of their time. And you go back and play Metal Gear Solid, the original, and the input lag on all of the movement is just absolutely gnarly. The version included in the Master Collection is the 50 hertz PAL version, so all of the textures just look muddy and pixelated, and all of the characters look like that bit in the Matrix where Neo's face goes all gluey when he's getting interrogated by Agent Smith. And I think the smaller resolution of this handheld game is a PSP game. I've not mentioned that already. The Metal Gear Acid is on the PSP, and I think because it was with a smaller.
What is it with you and PSP?
I know PSP is an incredible console, right? But the smaller resolution, the slightly smaller scale that came from that console, I think and the input from the cards and the turn-based part of it makes it hold up so much better. And it's a real classic slice of that iconic Metal Gear franchise that is just as playable now as it ever was. And I think it's really underrated. And I think if you're a really big fan and you want to get a perspective of what playing these games was like when they were fresh, when they were new, when they were really something to get excited about, this is the one that you should go back and play, because it has that. It's the cutscenes are in the comic book style too, and as we all know, like the Yoji Shinkawa's artwork is a huge part of why Metal Gear is iconic. And obviously, it's not him that's done it all, but it's all in that style. And I think that if you are a new Metal Gear fan, like I say, if you want to get an idea of what makes the franchise special, and you can really experience it as something new without having that grind, that jank, that incohesion of messing with a really old game, Metal Gear Acid is where you want to go.
Yeah. I absolutely love that.
Isn't it weird how this, and I had to look it up because I was like, I wonder if there was a bit of inspiration in one direction or the other. But this and Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, which was also a
the DS
card-based spin-off in a very similar way to what you described, came out. GBA game. They came out 1 month apart.
Oh, interesting.
Wow, I think
that's such a weird. That's like an Ants and Bugs Life sort of.
Yeah. I love it. How, like, you know, at the time it was a bit mad, but now you can, you know, you go on the Google Play Store and there's like 900 card battlers you can get a hold of, and it's just a really common kind of format now. But like, I think when Metal Gear Acid came out, it was a fairly new thing, wasn't it?
I think because it was on the PSP as well, it was sort of viewed as secondary. That it was like it's just a card battling spin-off. They've not really tried very hard.
Quite rightly, it's only got one stick.
and that
PSP is also there then where they ended up doing Peace Walker in the end.
And Portable Ops before that.
Yeah.
Portable, they're not spin-offs, are they? They're the same.
Oh yeah, Portable Ops. Yeah.
Portable, and they're both extremely good too. Oh, the PSP.
Well, Peace Walker's a big part of the actual narrative, right?
Yeah.
I love how because Bill Cliff's on like a 5G connection, there's a bit of a satellite delay as well, so he's getting like he's reacting to quips like 5 minutes later. Okay, right. So I need to pick something now, so I'm gonna play that detestable song. I regret this entire bit. Sorry. Okay, right. So I would like to, firstly, right, Metal Gear Acid, that pitch for Metal, that is the first time anyone has convinced me that I might enjoy Metal Gear game.
Don't fall for it.
Oh, I've tried. I've really tried to get into Metal Gear Solid, and every single time it's as you say, I never had a PlayStation as a kid or whatever. It was all like PC and Amiga and shit like that. And so I've been coming back to these as, you know, like the first time I played the original Metal Gear Solid was when it was at least like 12, 13 years old. And even then it was like, oh my God, this is like horrendous. And like, you know, I remember trying to play the remastered collection. I remember trying to play Metal Gear Solid 2. Which I loved a lot of things about, but what I didn't love about it was having to press like 9 buttons just to shoot a gun. I was like, nah, I'm not into this.
Yeah, another good thing.
So I like the idea of something that is a card battler.
Another good thing about Metal Gear Acid is that the cards are based on all of the series. So if you kind of have a passing knowledge of all of the characters, you can kind of get a bit of a taste of all of the different ones. So it has all of the bosses from all of the games. It has all of the I want to say Cobra unit from Metal Gear Solid 3. The lights in the camera have made my memory go blank there. So it's got all of the bosses as cards, and you have all of their special attacks, and you can get the and so yeah, if you've just got passing knowledge of it, it's really good.
I love it when you're like, that's like the third or fourth time you've made reference to being dazzled by the lights in the camera, as if like you're not on the set of Fresh Prince. It's just your fucking front room. All right, okay.
Just before you carry on, Jim, right?
Yeah.
The thing that struck me most about these choices that, right, I picked a game that is basically a typing teach you typing. Like, is it Mavis Beacon? Had one? Was that the big thing back then?
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
It's a typing game, right? You type words out. Yet somehow it's the least boring game out of all the choices, right? A typing. You type what you literally. People might think it's more than it is. Words pop up. You type them.
Tom, The Sims is beloved,
right? The Sims, right, is boring.
Yeah, it's boring.
It was. I had more fun when I used to play SimCity. I imagined life in the buildings, and that was more interesting than actually playing The Sims, right? And Metal Gear. I mean,
but if you put a police station down in SimCity, you don't get to choose where the light switches go. You just plonk it down, isn't it?
Mm.
That's the difference, Tom.
I mean, I'm happy for people to enjoy what they like, right? But
there's a big
it is a fact.
I was going to say,
it's a fact that The Sims is boring. I mean, I can't change what is a fact.
Okay. Right. Well, I mean, look, me and Alex both admitted earlier that we can't play it for more than like a few hours before
but that
shutting it off again.
That says more about us than it does about the game.
Yeah.
As discussed in terms of the game's longevity and its importance to the industry. I mean, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely.
It's I haven't actually looked up the numbers, but I'm sure it's going to be on that list of over 100 million copies sold, which puts it, above Assassin's Creed. It's above Final Fantasy. It's above Sonic. It's above Need for Speed. Wikipedia says it's above Zelda, but I don't know if that's before or after Tears of the Kingdom. It's above Resident Evil. It's above Madden.
Fucking hell.
It's
An
above
appeal
Star
to
Wars.
popularity
It's
is a
above
logical
Pro Evo,
fallacy. It's not an argument for it being good.
People have fake grass instead of going like. How can you explain what people choose?
Don't get me started on that. I'll be here for hours.
Now, I am like really torn because I think James has made Metal Gear. I know what The Sims is like. I've played like a fair bit of The Sims, and I think I understand Typing of the Dead, even though I haven't played. I played House of the Dead. I imagine it's like you type the word and then a bullet goes off, right? Is that essentially?
Well, the enemy dies when you type in the word.
I mean, basically, each enemy has a word attached to it, and typing that word in full kills the enemy. And so weaker enemies, like the little slugs that just jump at you, might literally be a single key. And so when you press J for the slug with J on it, you see as if a bullet has been fired, and it makes the bullet sound effect, pew, and it dies. An enemy that might have longer, more health will have longer words. And so as the zombies pop up, you have to sometimes, as well as just being a typing tool, there is gameplay to it, I admit, where you're having to type, you're having to make decisions about, right, that enemy's got a really long word, this one's shorter but he's closer to me, so I should take him out and then do the other one. But it is sort of, like I say, it's a lot like a ROM hack of House of the Dead. It's sort of done in a week for a laugh, and then they went, actually, this is actually quite a good idea. But I do think, in a weird way, in that sense, I don't massively think it's a true spin-off. In the 90s, you could get away with selling that separately, but the reason that on Steam they shipped Typing and the PC version of Overkill together is because I think they knew they could not ship the Typing game on its own.
And I'll just go back to the argument you were making earlier. Is Skyrim VR a spin-off of Skyrim, or is it just Skyrim?
That's different. That is different. Completely different scenario.
I'm trying to reach a conclusion here, Tom. You're making it really difficult. Okay. All right. Okay. Right. All right. I will concede, right, that of all these choices, Typing of the Dead is possibly the quirkiest and arguably most interesting, given that it's essentially a piss take, isn't it? Okay, I will concede that, Tom.
They knew what they were doing. Like, they even made
Yeah.
it so in the cutscenes, at least in the House of the Dead 2 version, they never did this with Overkill. So they have, like, instead of carrying guns in all the cutscenes, they have, like, a little Ghostbusters-style proton pack on, and like a tray that's strapped around them with a keyboard on it. So they knew what they were doing. They are sort of taking the piss with it. They even put it out in arcades, weirdly. I've been to a Japanese arcade where there's just, like, keyboards attached to a machine.
Japanese arcades are weird, though. I remember going to Japanese arcades where they're playing like Final Fantasy Online and stuff, and like just games you just would not see in an arcade. Are weird.
I want to be clear. I absolutely love Typing of the Dead, and I did think about picking it myself. But the reason I disqualified myself from picking it is the reason why I don't think that it wins. And that game did legitimately teach me to type. Or it was a part of it. That and Mario teaches typing.
Sounds like it's a good argument for it to win, if anything.
Very interesting.
But we're not saying Mario teaches typing is the best Mario spin-off either.
The main thing that shocked me is that Alex didn't pick that Sims spin-off on the Wii that he always bangs on about.
I'm surprised. The herbs.
Sims Kingdom, whatever it's called. It's
you mean the Final Fantasy one? Yeah,
Final Fantasy
My Life
one.
as a King. It's good, but it's not even the best Final Fantasy spin-off.
I actually thought that's what you were going to go for. To be fair.
when James picked Metal Gear and someone said, I think it was Jim who said, no, it was Tommy who said, is Metal Gear Acid even on the top PSP games? I tell you what, it is in the top PSP games when you Google it. Final Fantasy Tactics. But I digress.
And therefore, Metal Gear's underrated.
I'm really so very torn because the way James described Metal Gear Acid made me want to actually play it.
But then you'll play it and go, oh.
Yeah. But I am thinking, like, am I going to play it and go, oh, Bill Cliff game, and then just finish?
You've got a Steam Deck, don't you?
So the only
here's
game
what I'd say. Here's what I would say about Metal Gear Acid, just to be, it's not even the best Metal Gear spin-off.
Well, there's Revengeance.
It's not even the best Metal Gear spin-off because that is Rising.
Yeah, there's Rising Revengeance, which is I never really got on with it because it was in that era of PS3 games where things were very mechanically weird and control schemes weren't as kind of homogenized as they are now. So I don't like it as much because of that.
Yeah, but it's got that slowdown. It's got that slowdown where you press the trigger and do the slicing, and you can slice shapes into things and slice the shape of a penis out of a wall or out of a robot and stuff like that. It's a special game.
It is fun, but I don't think it has the same oomph.
Right. I've made a decision. And it's going to upset a lot of people. It's going to piss a lot of people off in the comments. It's going to annoy a lot of people here, but it's not going to annoy Alex because I'm going to have to go for The Sims.
It's the correct choice.
I have to go for The Sims because, as you said, it's one of those spin-offs that is just baffling in how much it surpassed its origins. It's almost like Fraser and Cheers or something like that.
I just want to know, how would you call a Ford Fiesta a spin-off from an Escort?
No,
Ford
but that's
Escort.
it's not remotely the same.
But
Basically
I would call a Focus a spin-off of a Ford Fiesta because they're built on the same foundations.
Yeah.
It's such a boring thing to be talking about.
Not even tugged on that. We could
I'm
have
just
said
trying
it's
to make
just
a
another game from
parallel
the
to
same
The
studio.
Sims.
It's just another game. Is it even a proper spin-off?
Fucking hell, what a choice of words. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. I've had to. Right. I was very torn. I was genuinely very torn between all of you this time, and it's taken me so long to choose because I'm like, but yeah, it's got to be The Sims just because of the sheer scale of it.
It should have been Herbs, right? It should have been the Herbs. If we're going to pick a Sims game,
the one with Will.i.am.
Should have been something interesting at least.
If someone had won with the Herbs, would that have upset Kelsey? No, I think she did win with the Herbs once. I can't remember. Anyway, all right, okay. Thank you very much for listening. And if you did manage to make your way all the way through that, God bless you. But thanks everyone for turning up. It was touch and go there for a while because James has to log in from his Steam-powered northern internet, and it's always a bit precarious these days. Right. please leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and leave us a bunch of comments, if you will, about how pleased you are that Tom has returned and how displeased you are that he didn't win. Because we always love that. We always have a good laugh at those. But also, if you've got, but if you've got any suggestions for this topic, then please do type them in, and I'm sure we'll read them and never refer to them again. All right, thanks very much, everyone. Bye.